So how is it that one ancient, super strange book at the very end of the Bible has sparked centuries of just wild predictions, conspiracy theories, and all these different visions of the future? Seriously, from medieval plagues to Beatles cults to doomsday prophets, the book of Revelation has kind of become this blank screen where we project our biggest fears. But what if we've been reading it all wrong? What if it's not a prophecy at all, but a coded message from a long, long time ago? All right, let's get into it. To really get how people read Revelation, we first have to understand how we read, well, anything. There's this great story about a literary critic named Stanley Fish. He did this fascinating experiment. So he had two classes, right, back to back. The first was linguistics. The second was 17th century religious poetry. For the linguistics class, he just wrote a simple assignment on the board. But when the poetry class walked in, he left the assignment up there. And he told them, hey, this is a newly discovered religious poem. I got an early look. So what do you think happened? Well, the students immediately, and I mean immediately, started finding religious symbols everywhere. The name Jacob's on the board, that was Jacob's ladder. Rosenbaum, obviously a rose tree, a symbol for the Virgin Mary. Thorn, the crown of thorns. They cooked up this whole complex Christian allegory out of a linguistics assignment. And here's the key. They saw what they were told to see. It turns out believing really is seeing.
And there is no bigger, better, or weirder example of this phenomenon than the book of Revelation. For something like 2,000 years, it's basically been a mirror, just reflecting the anxieties of whatever time period is looking into it.
Think about it. Back in the medieval era, when plagues were wiping everyone out, they looked at Revelation and saw, well, the plagues of Revelation. During the Cold War, guys like Hal Lindsey were absolutely convinced the book was all about the Soviet Union. Charles Manson saw a race war in it. And more recently, you had preachers like Harold Camping setting these very specific and, very wrong dates for Judgment Day. The text just becomes a perfect mirror for the moment.
And oh boy, do these interpretations get specific. I mean, Charles Manson famously decided that the Beatles were the locusts from Revelation. His proof? He said their long hair matched the locusts' hair of women. Their electric guitars were clearly the breastplates of iron. And their powerful lyrics, that was the fire and brimstone coming out of their mouths. It's horrifying for sure, but it's also a perfect example of seeing exactly what you're already predisposed to believe. Okay, so we've seen how the book has been read and reread, but that leaves us with an even bigger question. What is this book actually? Like, for real? To figure that out, we have to start with the name. The original Greek title wasn't meant to be revelation in the sense of a future prediction. It was apocalypsis. Right, an apocalypse. It doesn't mean the end of the world. The word literally means an unveiling. The point wasn't to predict the future. It was to pull back the veil on the present, to show what's really going on behind the curtains of power and politics. It's a revelation, sure, but it's not a roadmap. And this unveiling is designed to be totally overwhelming. The imagery is just this collage of chaos. You've got a figure with a sword shooting out of his mouth, a seven-headed dragon, a beast rising out of the sea. As the scholar Timothy Beale puts it, the images are designed to not fit together. You can't draw it. You can't even really picture it in your head. It's meant to break your brain, to show you a reality so awful that it's beyond normal comprehension. And to really drive home the scale of that horror, this is not subtle stuff. Rivers literally turn to blood. Insane plagues are unleashed. Angels are flying around with sickles, harvesting the entire earth. By one estimate, the total body count in the book is somewhere around 5 billion people. This isn't just violence. It's cosmic, overwhelming gore.
Okay, so if this book is an unveiling and not a prophecy, what exactly is it unveiling? And who wrote it? To crack this code, we have to look at the author and the world he was living in. And this is where the mystery really starts to unravel.
For centuries, pretty much everyone just assumed the author was the Apostle John, the same guy who wrote the Gospel of John. But yeah, modern scholars are almost 100% certain that's wrong. The Gospel of John, it's written in this beautiful, elegant, sophisticated Greek. The Greek in Revelation is, well, to put it nicely, it's horrible. It's clumsy, it's barely literate, and it's just packed with this violent, gory imagery that is totally different from the theological vibe of the gospel. It's pretty clear we're talking about two different people. And you have to remember, this book was not written in a vacuum. I mean, look at this timeline. It was forged in a moment of extreme crisis, around 95 AD. Just a few decades before, the Emperor Nero had blamed Christians for the Great Fire of Rome, and that kicked off a period of horrific persecution. The Jewish temple in Jerusalem, the center of their entire world, had been utterly destroyed by the Romans. For these early Christians, the world was, quite literally, on fire. And you just have to try and imagine the sheer desperation of that moment. The author, a man named John living in exile, is dealing with one crisis after the other. Jesus had promised that some of his followers wouldn't taste death before he came back, but, well, they were dying. The Roman Empire was actively hunting them, and now Roman emperors were declaring themselves gods and forcing people to worship them. This book, Revelation, it's a response to all of that. It's a coded message of hope and rage for people who are under extreme, violent depression.
So once you get that Revelation is basically a coded political attack on the Roman Empire, all the bizarre symbols suddenly start to make perfect sense. They aren't about some distant future, they are 100% about the author's present.
All right, let's decode the main villains. That great red dragon, it's not just some mythical creature. It's a symbol for the evil of the Roman Empire itself. And the monstrous beast that comes out of the sea, that's Rome and its whole line of emperors who claim to be gods. And Babylon the Great, the oppressor who's drunk on the blood of the saints, that's a code name. It's a code name for the city of Rome, just like the original Babylon had been the great enemy of the Jews centuries before. And that, of course, brings us to the most famous number in history, 666, the mark of the beast. For centuries, people have tried to pin this number on their enemies, from popes to presidents, but the original audience, they would have known exactly who it was pointing to.
The answer is in a Jewish practice called gematria, where letters also have number values. So if you take the name and title Neron Caesar, which is just Hebrew for Emperor Nero, and you add up the numerical value of those letters, you guessed it, exactly 666. The mark of the beast wasn't some future microchip. It was a coded diss on the monster who started it all, the most hated man in their world, Emperor Nero.
So you might be thinking, okay, if Revelation is just a first-century coded attack on the Roman Empire, why does it still have such a powerful grip on us today? What's its lasting function? Why do we still care?
Well, it's because the book provides a kind of timeless playbook for apocalyptic thinking. It's a pattern that shows up whenever a group of people feels a sense of total catastrophe, when they believe there is absolutely no hope left in the current system. It taps into that really deep human desire to just burn it all down and start over, with the promise of a new, purified world rising from the ashes. We see this pattern pop up again and again throughout history during times of crisis.
So ultimately, this book isn't about some divine schedule for the end of the world. It's a deeply, deeply human document. It's about rage. It's about the kind of anger you feel when everything you hold sacred, your faith, your people, your hope, is being crushed and disrespected by an overwhelming power. It's resistance literature. It's a primal scream against injustice.
Which leaves us with one final thought. If the book of Revelation is a coded message from a very specific time and place, is it just a relic of the past, or does its powerful message about finding hope in the face of tyranny and its very human way of seeing the world in stark black and white terms, does that still shape how we think about our own crises today? Maybe the veil it's really lifting isn't on the future at all, but on a timeless pattern of human despair and human hope.